So, hello, welcome to a new video again. Today we are going to do a little bit of a different one again. It's the first evening after quite a big storm in the Netherlands, or in Europe actually. So it's beginning of November, and I gave this one the topic Four Queens. Because I came to the conclusion, but I should have known this of course, but never sort of hit me directly, is that we have 4 parks named after four queens. And I figured today we had to do something so for our hourly drive. So I decided to visit all 4 parks named after the different queens. And so that's what we are doing today. So the first one we are going to go to is called the Maxima Park. And in a way that's the easiest one because it's closest to my home, and it's also our current queen. We have a king and a queen now, which is slightly different than before. We usually just have let's say a queen and then a prince, or the other way around. But this time we have both a queen and a king, which kind of makes sense, I guess. So the first park we are going to is also the biggest one. It's called the Maxima Park and it's our current queen. And the nice thing about this park, as you will see, is that it's so big that you can hang out there more than in the other ones, almost in private, if that makes sense. Of course, not like a national park, it's not that big, it's in the city. But it is. There are some areas where you can sort of go sit with your friends or with your significant other or with a small family, and be quite by yourself. So from there we are going to the next one, which is Juliana Park. Like I said, there was a storm yesterday. I forgot its name, but I will look it up. Because this is going to be about a 1.5 hour drive, about 25 to 30 kilometers. And I forgot actually what the storm was yesterday, the name. But it was going over the most of Europe, so let me try to find the name back. Kiaran, I guess Kiaran. So we are using the same old road that we took last week into the park. I kind of planned this with Komoot, so I didn't totally plan it, but I kind of shaped it a little bit through the different parks. But it's by no means a complete route of the park. And in fact, on this park, the Maxima Park, I'm considering when it's in the spring and the flowers are out again, to try to do all the bicycle paths in the park, which might actually be quite a difficult thing to do because there's so many, because this is quite a big park. It's more in the newer part of town. So I normally do this voiceover on a Sunday. It's now Friday evening. So I'm sitting here with a cup of coffee. So if you hear me drinking, sorry. If this is the first time you're watching one of my videos in the helicopter view, which sometimes will make bigger, we are now passing the Roman fort, or the replica, or I wouldn't even call it a replica, sort of modern interpretation of the Roman fort that was here in the old days. Utrecht was started as a Roman settlement. Another thing that you might notice that my bike is making a little bit different noises today. It just got back from its, I would say every 4 or 5 months it needs to go for maintenance because I drive so much. So this year it will be probably about 10,000 kilometers. And so every, let's say 4,000 kilometers it goes in for service, and it just had new braking pads, and they need to be rubbed in. And you do that by braking quite violently. So sometimes I'm braking more violently than needed just to brake them in a little bit. Although it's difficult given the still wetness of the ground. As you can see, it has rained quite a lot. And it also today is again raining quite a lot. So I kind of sneaked in a 2-hour gap where it was not raining. And we are slowly entering the park. This park is, I would say, so big in city terms, is that it has sort of like a ringway around it. And lots of people have already remarked about the flowers on the bike path. So if it's part of this park, it has flowers on the bike paths. But it's almost like a ringway for bicycles, scooters, skateboarding people, skiing and walking, of course. And you notice it's already quite cold, or you don't notice, but I can tell you it's still quite cold. It's about 10-11 degrees Celsius. The day after the storm. So we see a lot of, when we get into the different parks, we see a lot of water, but also leaves and small branches. And at the end of the video, they're actually already cleaning up some of the bicycle paths. But what you also see is that there are less people about, simply because of that reason. When we are going from this park to the next part, we have to go through the inner city. Of course, there you will find more people bicycling again, because it was about 1 to 2 o'clock when I went out for the bike ride. So midday, and you can already see that it's busy on a Friday, people getting home early for the weekend. So we are slowly getting to the main area of the park. I also think my bike has developed a new sound. It's probably my saddle pin, so I'll take a look at that. Of course, I try to work a little bit on the audio of the microphone on the bicycle, so you can't hear that it's quite noisy and windy, but you can see that on the trees that it's still quite windy today. Yesterday, of course, it was a much tougher wind. So we are now entering the park. I'll first go to an area where there's quite a nice sort of a restaurant where you can go for drinks, coffee, tea. It's already always quite busy, especially in summertime, of course. And you can see for Dutch concepts, it's quite a big park. And like I said, I think at some point I will try to plan a route to all the bicycle paths in the park. I think it will be quite a long ride. So we are now just doing sort of a random slice of the park before we go to the next one. I will probably put some pictures of the different queens somewhere in the video. Might have already done this for Maxima, which was the first one. You can see there's quite a lot of water in this park, and bridges. And this is what I meant with the sort of secluded spots, almost like RV locations, but without the RVs, so you can sort of make an appointment with friends to take over one of these areas and hang out. Not the day for it, so in a way it's perfect to show you today, because clearly we are in autumn. I see all these different areas that you can occupy. And going over another bridge again. I never heard that sound before. I think it's my stand of the bike. These are quite fun to ride over. We are slowly getting into a habit with these videos. I wouldn't say we are getting them quite stable, but I kind of getting into a certain flow. So if you have any things that you think I should do differently, let me know. Okay, we slowly start thinking about how we are going to do this next year. Not sure how many of these we'll still be making in the next 2 months. So we are kind of on the outskirts of the Maxima Park now, as you can see, and getting ready to go to the next one. I wouldn't say that I'm bothered about this sound, but I'm kind of surprised by it. The clunk of the... Especially because the bike felt, I would almost say, as new again. But weirdly enough, every time they do maintenance, they check everything and put in new brake pads and stuff like that. And it always feels better when it gets back. So hearing these sounds is interesting. Except for the brakes, they always make a little bit more noise when they are not fully rubbed in yet. And also it's a rainy day, and so they might be noisy to begin with. almost by accident we are continuing on our somewhat older pathways through Utrecht, and I think this gives quite a good feeling. Some of the noise and also some of me swerving around a little bit is because of the leaves on the ground and small tree branches that have fallen off. It will take them a few days to clean them all up again. We talked about this before, that we are quite, how do I say this, snobs when it goes about bicycle paths. So having these small branches on the bicycle paths is kind of irritating. They can also be quite slippery sometimes. Now my bike has about 2.4 inch wide tires. So not a fat bike, but somewhat bigger than most bikes, and especially bigger than racing bikes. So if you're on a racing bike, of course these wet leaves, but especially these branches that have now fallen off, can be quite tricky. So as you can see on the 3D helicopter view, we are next to one of the railroad track pairs going into the city, ending at Utrecht Centraal, which is the biggest train station in the Netherlands. Utrecht is in the middle of... You hear how windy it is, by the way. So Utrecht is in the middle of the country, and like all roads normally would go to Rome, in the Netherlands all train tracks are going to or through Utrecht. And this is one of the way they get to the middle of the city. And I've not talked about this for a while, but we are now in the area called Leidse Rijn, which is was, and I think it still is, the biggest building area in the Netherlands. They try basically to adding in a second part of the city of Utrecht and incorporated small villages, which we did talk about before. But it's quite a lot of building going on still, and it has been going on for about 20-25 years. And there's a good mix of types of housing. In the beginning they kind of made them all the same, like you can see on your right. Later on they also have areas where you can almost individually build your own home. And on the right side, on the other side of the train station or the railroads, you see more of, I would almost call it a Spanish or French, I guess Spanish, design blocks. And again, I talked about it before, especially in autumn, you can see the different colors. There's always enough water and green around, in my opinion. I might sound like a fan of my own city, which I am, by the way, or even the country. I guess I kind of am, because otherwise I wouldn't live here, I would just move. But I guess if you're making videos in another country, you would kind of do the same thing, especially in these types of videos. So again, you hear me braking quite violently to make sure that the brakes are sort of getting there a good start. So they last me about 8 to 9,000 kilometers. But if you don't break them in correctly, then yeah, they might give trouble earlier. It's actually the first time in a while that I stopped for an ambulance. We are actually just past the hospital. So seeing an ambulance here is not that weird. So if you look at the right, you see a tower. And you can maybe later also see the building in the 3D view a bit. That's the local power plant. And it provides electricity for a large part of the city. But also for this part, it provides the heat. So I don't have any natural gas or gas in my home. I only have electricity, which comes from this power plant, and hot water, which also comes from this power plant. Which I guess is good news and bad news, especially with the things going on in the world. The prices were last year about 400% higher than they were in 2019 or 2021, I guess. But the prices are coming down, but it's still quite expensive. And because of the way that the heating is done, there's also not... oh, here you can quite nicely see in the 3D view, sorry to be distracted. I'll make it bigger. Where the highway is going under this part of the city. So you see how many lanes there are. And that we are actually now physically on top of the road. We're standing still anyway, so. We normally look at it from the other side, but in this case we are looking at it from this side. And going to the yellow bridge again with the coffee factory. And also we see a little bit of the Utrecht harbor area. You might think that the video is a little bit dull today. That's because although the sky was quite blue, outside was actually quite dull. It had rained in the morning. And it definitely also rained after the morning, so. Now I could have cut out all these in-between parts, but I think the fun was to drive to the different parks. So the first jump from the Maxima Park to the Juliana Park is actually quite a big one. So Maxima is from Argentina, and she's married to our king, Alexander, and we are now going to his grandma, which was the previous queen. Oh, sorry, not the previous, that was his mom, but his grandma. So going over the yellow bridge, also called the coffee bridge, because as you can see how the smoke is coming out of the top of the coffee factory. They're burning the beans. It was quite windy. Looking at the helicopter view, I guess Google is a little bit in a bad mood because it defines all the railroad tracks as darkened. Not sure why. She almost fell over. She still clearly was either a tourist or still learning. They were speaking, not sure what language, I forgot. So I keep behind them for a while. And later on behind me I heard them talking about, he was explaining how to use the brakes, I think. So lots of Dutch bicycles have back pedal braking. I personally don't like it. You can't really have them in a nice way on a bike like this. I also prefer having handbrakes myself.
Yeah, but now you brake. Well, you cannot. You have to push the other one.
No, you cannot brake. Not sure if you heard that, but they were still sort of talking. So the Juliana Park is on a road called the Amsterdamstraatweg, which is a main road in the direction of Amsterdam, I guess. I'm not sure if that's true, but I'm guessing that's why it's called the Amsterdamstraatweg. It is one of the... Ooh, did I go to red? I will look back to that because I think I just drove to red there. Or maybe the bicycle path was already green. I don't know. I always assume that I'm following most of the law, bicycle or road laws, but sometimes in these videos I catch myself that you don't. I guess that's also human, especially if you bike so much. And that's why infrastructure also has to be a little bit bendable, that even if you don't follow all the rules, that it's still safe. Because everybody makes mistakes. Fun part, you can see in the reality that the road has already been limited to one lane. While in the Google helicopter view you can see that this is still a much bigger road. They just redone this I think a year ago. Some parts even this year. This was kind of bad planning. You hear the brakes are still not overly happy. She also doesn't look overly happy. Checking your phone, yep. Checking the phone, earbuds in, having music on. This is typical Dutch on OV fiets. Not making judgments, but I guess I am. But it also shows you I think I'm probably the only one today driving around for the fun of it. the rest is going somewhere. So we are nearing the park. We can already see it in the helicopter view. It's kind of the size of a block. And you're not supposed to go in with your bicycle, which of course I'm ignoring. I felt it was cold and wet anyway. If I bicycle slowly until somebody stops me. Well, maybe he is riding for fun. Like me. Of course. More fun riders on a Friday. This restaurant is a Chinese restaurant called Juliana. Which kind of makes sense because it's at the entrance of the Juliana Park. So Juliana was, basically the queen from 1948 to 1980. And in many ways she was the queen when I grew up. So in my mind, I guess Beatrix, which was her daughter. But maybe for me, Juliana was sort of the first queen that I can remember, of course. And she seemed like a typical grandma. She was not as, in a way, not as active as Beatrix was. And especially now Maxima and Alexander are. But one thing that I remember, and I think most Dutch people remember, is that every year she was on her palace and people would walk by in the défilé and show what they were doing. I'm not sure what the whole idea was about, but groups from society would walk and parade in front of her and her husband, and she would wave and stuff like that. You're supposed to put your bike here, but we are going into the park, and as you can see on the sign, it's called the Juliana Park, which is the second queen in our quest. We are not doing them on the correct order. So the good news is almost nobody is watching my videos, so all the mistakes I'm making will not be corrected. If it would be a really big YouTube channel, people would fix all the things that I did in the research, claims that I'm making. And as you can see, on the leaves, it's quite slippery already, and some parts you can hardly see where the bike paths are. Well, they're not bike paths, but walking paths. And at some point they have to be kind of careful not to fall into the water. Of course, this I didn't plan carefully. I just sort of randomly went through the parks and then exited again to go to the next one. And many of these parks have some attractions for kids. So in this case, an animal farm. She was taking pictures and he was kind of embarrassed when I got closer. He was like, no, and then she continued anyway. And again, even in considering it's in the city, you see there's lots of water around. And over here I had to be a little bit careful because the leaves are quite slippery and I didn't want to end up into the water. Not many people around. Guess mostly students just walking from one part to the other part of the park as a quick way to get to the other side, I'm not sure. And again, with all the parks you see, there's lots of places to put your bicycle. Now the fence going out on the other side. Back on the main road we just started. I figured I stay behind her for a while because she was a little bit all over the place. Not in a bad way, because otherwise people are going to comment that I mopper te veel, that I'm bickering too much. But I kind of, I wouldn't say enjoy stopping for people, but I do not mind sort of to stay behind people or slow down a bit. Sometimes just to watch what they are doing, or to put it on video. Later on we have a few kids, which I kind of slow down just to get them a bit more into the picture. They were with their mom because they were having fun on the bike with all the water. This is in the right to see, or left, sorry. I hope you catch it. It was an oliebollenkraam. So we have these, the holidays are coming up, and all over the country, I guess, but also in Utrecht, you have this portable eat trucks which sell you the different holiday snacks, and the most famous one is oliebollen. So I'm guessing if he would come off. No? All the sounds that my bike are making makes you ponder if I have a really old-fashioned bike that almost falls into different parts, but definitely not true. I guess after a storm, most countries have fallen trees. We also have them, of course, but I guess a good way to see that it has been storming, that is the fallen bikes. So lots of bikes are fell over, and you can see them left and right on the ground. Clearly a sign that it's windy and we had a storm. As you can see, they're all over the place. Never thought about that, but clearly there are more bikes on the ground than there normally are. It's interesting how in the helicopter view Google Maps really seems to be confused by the railroad system. Not sure, are they trying to hide them or what's happening there? Not sure. But you can see all the black ones are the rail tracks coming in. So again, I didn't really plan for this, but we are going to pass what they claim to be the busiest bicycle path in the Netherlands and probably the world. It's not very busy now because there are no students at this time. But we will be there in a few minutes because that's on our route to the next one. The next one is the oldest one, at least it's the oldest queen, before she passed away, of course, called Wilhelmina. So the water on your left in the helicopter view, and also of course on your left in the real view, is the famous highway in the city that has been replaced with water. Difficult to see here, but because we see cars, but next to that is water, which used to be a highway. So you can see there's still cars that are able to drive there, but the main waterway that you're seeing was a highway. And this is the busy bicycle path. As you can see on the other side, it is a bit busy, but not massively busy. And everything just flows. And as you can see, lots of bikes, and also under in the buildings you can hear there's a parking garage for bikes. Even though we are very close to the really big one, the 12,000 one, but that's far from enough, so there's more scattered around. So here you have the rainbow crossing. They redid it a few weeks ago, and they added all the extra colors from the LBTG, P plus something. I always forgot. I also don't like the new design, and it's not that I'm I'm against it, but I kind of like just the rainbow colors better than all the new colors that now are supposed to be there. And again, this is not in any way a political statement. I just like the rainbow colors by themselves better. So one of the reasons why this track is so busy at some points, especially the places that we were before, is because lots of students go to this area, which a lot of the buildings are from the University of Utrecht. Quite a famous university, and most of the students use bicycles, so that's why in the morning it can be quite busy. I almost wanted to ride in there. Seems like a good fun part of the video, riding into the truck, but you also notice, I hope, that sometimes you see bicycles cross each other, which looks dangerous, but it's like 1 or 2 seconds in between. But they clearly have been communicating by just looking at each other and saying, okay, you go. And I sometimes get questions about this in real life or on the videos, that it looks kind of dangerous or hectic. Um, and I would compare it to if you're in a, let's say at a festival or just at a party, and people are just walking about. We don't have rules of people sort of walking about just among themselves, right? People just negotiate, and the speed is so low when you're walking, even if you're holding your drinks, that it should not be a big deal. And I think maybe this is just habit, or this, again, the speed. The speed and the infrastructure is set up in such a way that in most places you can negotiate amongst yourself. So it's kind of a self-regulating system. So in a way, you can see the traffic lights, like we have here, are helping us in not needing to negotiate ourselves. But of course, we are human beings. We can negotiate. So in all kinds of ways, if we take away traffic lights, which we will see in quite a lot of my videos and also even on this trip, where there are simply no traffic lights, it just tells you that people have to sort of negotiate all by themselves. And that also assumes, let's say, different contexts and also what you are used to. And this is a good example because this is quite a wide road and there's quite a few cars, but everybody on a bicycle is riding in the middle of the road, and they don't really look out when they're coming on the road. Just looking left and right, people are just doing their thing. Because the cars are kind of, by law, but they also kind of know that they are not sort of masters of the road. And simply because of that fact, it means that the cars also negotiate, if that makes sense, with the other people on the road. Anticipate. And don't just trust the traffic lights. Now we can go into depth on why that is and if that's possible in different places. And again, we see in front of us another of these temporary food stands, because the holidays are coming up. Oliebollen. This is a good example. An American truck are still following the Dutch rules. He's very polite. Doesn't give me any black smoke. In fact, I was giving the black car a little bit of space, but he was like, "No, come on, hurry up. This is a bike path. This is not a car path." And we now left both cars behind us, so. And you see, the traffic lights here are not turned on. It's fascinating even for Dutch people. If you start thinking about it, you sort of go, especially in the last 20 years, we see these types of roads, so with a little bit of stones in the middle, and even on this roundabout, that are so, yeah, I would say more shared space. I'm making a few mistakes here, so we are at the third park, the Wilhelmina Park. But I made a mistake, so I have to turn and then get into the park. I make two mistakes actually. But even for us, some of this, let's say the newest generation of roads, where basically it's more and more shared space and you figure it out sort of level of riding. For people from my generation, still also to get used to. get used to is a big word, but it's still kind of fascinating. And then I figured out, oh, I need to go in here. Okay, so we are in the third park. Wilhelmina was an interesting queen. So this is the Wilhelmina Park. She was the queen from 1880 to 1962. And hopefully nobody will correct me. Of course, I have no memories of her because, well, she was queen before I was born. But two stories that I heard in different documentaries is that of course, in the Netherlands you watch a lot of, or you have got it on school, a lot of information about the Second World War. And she was the queen during the Second World War, so she fled with the family to England, and she helped control the resistance from there. And one thing that Churchill said of her, said she was the only one with balls in the Dutch government, which is kind of an interesting thing to say publicly about a queen. The only one with balls in the Dutch government. Okay. The other thing, which is also war related, I think this is true, but I have to Google it, which I'm too lazy to do, is that when she got back, if you're in Amsterdam and you're at the Dam, which is the main square in Amsterdam, one of the main squares, there's a palace there, the palace on the dam, Paleis van op de Dam. And the rumor or the story is that when she got back, she was heard talking to the other people in the party of all the buildings that the Germans bombed. Why couldn't they have bombed this ugly building? And she was talking about the main palace on the square. She clearly didn't like it. And also, I think she was also already very much a bicycle person. I think there are pictures of her bicycling in the different parts of the country until she became queen, and then it was not allowed anymore. So there she is. She was very small, and yeah. I stopped here for a while just to show you the. I was already almost being run over by 3 or 4 different students. So this is one of the bicycle paths through the park, clearly being used. And you can see on the helicopter view again that this is quite a big park. And then we are going to the last park, which was Queen Beatrix, and she's still alive. You can see the big parts on the road not big parts, but trees, branches that fell off yesterday. So we are going to the Beatrix Park. And she was the queen from the 80s until, that's a good question, about 15 years ago. Let me Google that. Yeah, 1980 to 2013. She was a firm, or she is a firm lady. And in my mind, compared to Juliana, quite an active queen. I guess this also fits with what the kings and queens and royal families now do in Europe. They seem to be much more active compared to the old days. And if something bad happens, disasters, and just being there for people, she definitely was. When something happened, she was would always show up. I have no deep opinion about the royalty, I don't mind as long as they don't have power. And if enough people enjoy a royal family and it doesn't cost too much, I'm totally fine with it. I So it's Friday, which is quite a few people a free day. About 2 o'clock or between 2 and 3, between 2 and 3, I think. And you can see how busy it is already with cars, right? So it's before the uh, the busy area of the day, before everybody goes home. But it's definitely not a car-free city. We talked about this before, especially you can even see in the top view parking spots. It's not as bad as in America, but I think it's important to showcase that this is definitely not a car-free city. It's just that the power level, whatever they want to call it, between cars, bicycles, and pedestrians is different. Even on a road like this, which has no signage at all for bikes. We rode here last week also. I feel, I wouldn't say totally safe, but totally okay. This is normal. See other people also biking here. Of course, it would be better, just more clear, if it will be a bicycle street, so it turned all red, and then with some gray in the middle, purely for your mindset, if that makes sense. But even if it's not a bicycle street, I wouldn't say it's assumed by car drivers, because that would definitely not be true. But in a road like this, they assume that there can be bicycles and drive accordingly. So these types of roads can be quite slippery when it's wet and rainy, and I guess we're going to see in the next few weeks what happens if it gets snowing. Will I still bicycle and make videos? I probably won't, but we'll see. She clearly was not enjoying getting up to the bridge. I was staying behind this guy, and he was almost looking at me irritated, and why don't you pass me? Come on. Yeah. Interesting. Sometimes you're trying to be nice, because he was, of course, not his hands on the steering wheel. Again, braking quite loudly just to brake in the brakes. Brake in the brakes. Burn in the brakes, I guess is a better way of saying it. loop the loop into the park. So park number 4 for the 4 queens. So we had Maxima, Juliana, Wilhelmina and now Beatrix. The second thing that I always have to think about when I hear Beatrix is a friend of mine who was one of the main programmers behind the Java programming language in 1993, 1994. We were helping him testing for Sun Microsystems the Java programming language as beta testers, and he had a dog called Beatrix. I'm assuming he had a dog called Beatrix because it's been like so long ago, the 90s, that I think we can safely assume that the dog has passed away. It's also weird to think about, right? And anyway. Again, quite a lot of water in this park. I don't go too deeply into this park, but I do sidetrack a little bit simply because I didn't want to leave that quickly. You also see some fortresses here. So this is one park that I will probably over the summer also revisit it on the ride. As you can see, it already gets a little bit darker. The clouds are slowly coming together. And we will have rain again. I could have planned this one a little bit better, so that's why I sort of go to the right here just to and then I figured the official route that I wanted to go is kind of boring, and so I figured let's go over the bridge and see where we end up. And we end up at the same place we were like 2 minutes ago, but at least you can see one of the bridges. And again, most of these parks have these little paths and places that you can hang out. Not as organized as in the Maxima Park, but that one is also quite a lot bigger. But you can see on the helicopter view that this one also has lots of these small bridges and waterways and so we just did a loop the loop, so we are going to repeat what we already have seen. In a way it's also, I wouldn't say boring, but a limited experience to visit these parks in autumn on a day after a major storm with nobody around. Nearly nobody. So we'll definitely redo this one and in summertime. But remember, I'm making these videos partly because I have to do the bicycle anyway. I try to bicycle about 50 kilometers a day. So this is about 25 to 30 kilometers. So this is not my only ride of the day. Have to is a big word. I try to. And that was the 4 different parks. Now you notice that the video is still not done because like always I will go back to the starting point. If I can find my way, because I think I make one navigational error again. I think over here. Like... This can't be right. And once you make a mistake, most of the time you make a second mistake. So I was almost in the correct path. I should have taken this one to the left, but I didn't. So again came to the conclusion that was not going correctly and had to turn back again. I could make the argument I want to show you the second bridge, but you still see quite a lot of these skate park thingies, whatever you want to call it. I was watching another video of somebody, they were talking about the grey of the asphalt. And maybe this is just my Dutch mindset, but I kind of agree that simply because there's a little bit more color on the road, like the red or the green, or the red in combination with the green here, the greenery, it gives, even on a very dull day, it gives a little bit of more of color to a city. So I'm a big fan of the red bicycle paths. Not because A, they are very handy, because you know it's a bicycle path and it's a good signal to everybody in traffic. But also, he's blocking the road, but he's still learning. So it's not a learning car, but this car that's basically not being very nice. But I kind of, if you imagine that all these bicycle paths, in the old days they were actually grey. I kind of like that indeed they are red. It gives a little bit more color to the city. Even on a dull day. 1, 2, 3, 4 kids on bikes with him. I would so not have listened if I was biking with my mom. Then I can't remember bicycling with my dad. Later in life he was bicycling, also to my home. But I've almost no memory of riding with a bicycle with my dad. A little bit with my mom, but also not that much. Basically, as every Dutch person, yeah, also not very nice. As every Dutch person, most of my bicycling memories are playing as a kid or going to school, and I wouldn't say hating it, but the moments when the weather is not really helpful when going to school, because like school kids today, also in the 70s and the 80s, you had to take your bicycle to school. And most would, let's say, up to an hour a day would be acceptable. So half an hour to school, half an hour back would be acceptable distance. Which is not always fun if it's really rainy or worse. Actually, now that I think about it, one of my schools, when I was doing electrical engineering, was very close to here. About 3 minutes drive from the place that we are now riding. And slowly making our way back to the newer part of the city. Normally I ride on the other side of the road, but I was using the planner because I don't like this way they did this, for example. So that's a fun thing if you use a route planner and try to stick to it. Is I would normally go to the right here, but it told me to go. You see me already holding back and figuring, do I go do it or do I follow the planner? I did follow the planner and went into this underpass, which is I guess so fun to see. It goes under the main roads for bicycles. But normally I would be on the other side of the road. And this is also part of my, I would say almost daily loop. I would definitely cross this at least one time a day, but on the other side of the road. To me that makes more sense, but you can't fight with a route planner at some point. We also have this weird sort of black line going over this road. Again, over the rail tracks. I think this is the tram track, so I will Google this to see why Google is doing this. Because clearly every time that it thinks it sees, even though this is a tram, if it sees a tram or thing or train, it decides to block it out. How interesting. I never noticed that before. Again, the braking I did on purpose. Why only put solar panels on a quarter of the roof and not on all of it? Maybe just that side of the owners that... I used to live in this area and I was always wondering on top of this building if it would be expensive to live there. Seemed like a nice place to be there. On the top penthouse. I'm not planning on moving, so... I used to live here next to the IKEA, which is a little bit down the road. And then the city of Utrecht told me that I was not allowed to live there. So, yeah, I left there and bought a home where I live now. And this part of town is now considered, air quotes, the bad part of town. I guess that also kind of moves from decade to decade, right? We always have a bad neighborhood. At least that's what people tell you. I hope you enjoyed this ride. I assume that you, well, maybe somebody is watching the whole video, but I assume that you're jumping around and you got to the part that you wanted to see or enjoyed. But I figured having a theme for this one, so the 4 Queens parks, that was the one for today. No, you can continue, yeah. If you go back, you see that I already predicted she would not look carefully. So that's why I already stopped, and then why would you still pass and not let her go first? Oh, I forgot my coffee, now it's cold. Been talking to you a lot, forgot to drink my coffee. Oh well. Cold coffee is still coffee. It was quite busy for Friday afternoon. Actually, we were just passed by a taxi company, and there are several of them, which are like taxis, but they are for disabled people or sick people. And you can ask your doctor and the city council for, how do you say, membership, or that you're allowed to use them. And they are quite cheap, so they bring you to another part of the city for about €2.50. The only downside is that they will pick up multiple passengers. So my sister, before she passed away, she was using it quite a lot. And it was quite fun because, again, I'm staying behind them and braking way too loud. Her bike was really sort of that color. But the little boy in front, he's making his assignment to hit every water puddle he could find and riding through it. And they actually passed me 2 times, I think. That was a really fluorescent bike. I'm not sure if you can see it on the video clearly, but he was racing to the next water opportunity every time. And there you go. Oh, he's also doing it, but not as... I was trying to catch him. There he goes. Feet on the middle of the bike. Clearly showing his bicycle powers. Again, a good example. You see how many cars are waiting, but because the bicycle road here is so wide, it sort of gives you a feeling of power, or I'm not sure what to call it, but there's no moment that you feel that you are sort of trespassing there. And clearly the kids are getting ahead of me again. And he's getting ready to hit the next water puddle. Legs wide and through the water. which by the way, to keep your feet dry, a lot of people would do or will do when they're on a bike. Go through a puddle if you have to, with your feet up in the air. And there he goes again. Of course I also have to be careful, so I brake for these two people. And again, let them pass. Again, let me remind you that on the video it looks like I'm going really fast. Clearly I was not going that fast because the kids were passing me by. But in this case, it's not that I was driving really fast and the two runners were in danger of me. No, I just let them pass early. Unlike these cars, which could have given me some space, but didn't until this one. Yes, this one. And I think we are running out of battery here, so we'll be back on the next battery. And we are back. Put a new battery into the camera for the last few minutes of this bicycle ride. And the only task is getting back to the main starting point in Leidse. So you're probably getting bored about the next attraction because we are going to take the Daphne Schippers Bridge again. So if it's your first time, that's the bridge that does a loop-the-loop, then uses the roof of a school to get to the bridge, and then the bridge goes over the canal to the new part of town. And because it's a bicycle path on the top of a roof, a bicycle path on the top of a school building, it is famous. At least in bicycle country, in the bicycle part of YouTube. So all the people you see in front of us are going to take that bicycle path. And we are too. I could have run this red light. Nobody there, but like the delivery guy in front of me, I am following the rules. I was kind of surprised that we didn't get any rain as of yet, so our timing was near perfect. Going to these 4 different parks. Last time I kind of forgot, but I will make the wee sounds when we're going this one, although we're going up, so there's not much wee sound going on. There's more if you're going down. Again, entering the roof area of the school, which we are on now. It's kind of like a dead corner here, and then over the school, passing everybody onto the bridge. It was quite windy, you can't hear it, but they were putting in quite an effort. Slowly this part on the other side of the bridge is being built up. And here we are, if you are really watch from the beginning, on the other side there we are going over the road underground, which is below us, but now about, I don't know, 1.5 kilometers further along that path. Oops, he almost knocked me over. But it's very windy, you can't see it, but some people were affected by the winds. Sharp turn. Yippee. And we are back on the long road, one of the longest straight bicycle paths in the city. No, well, the longest I would guess, about 5 or 6 kilometers. And the reason is because next to us, between the trees, are two massive water lines going from Utrecht to Amsterdam to give them drinking water. The drinking water from Amsterdam is being pumped up here, and then using these two massive tubes going into the dunes, basically where the Formula 1 is being done in Zandvoort, and being cleaned up and then pumped to Amsterdam for drinking water. And here you can see that they are cleaning the bicycle paths of all the leaves and the branches that have fallen. They will do that quite quickly in the next few days after a major storm to get everything clean again. So I hope you enjoyed this video. We are nearing the end of it. And we will see what we can come up with for next week. Hopefully I will try to find a nice gap in the rainy weather to see if we can go to another local attraction in the neighborhood outside of the city. And I will also, when it's summertime, revisit some of these parks. When there's more activity. So again, thank you for watching and see you in the next one. Bye bye.